The ruins of New Haven stretched endlessly beneath a blood-red sky, its once proud towers now twisted monuments to the Crimson Dominion's brutality. Maya Winters moved like a ghost through the shadows, her dark cloak billowing in the acrid wind. 20 years had passed since the fall of Earth, and still the fires of war burned across the galaxy. She shouldn't have come here. The Dominion's death squads had been systematically hunting down the last of the Guardians, and New Haven was crawling with their forces. But the psychic distress signal that had drawn her to this place was unlike anything she'd felt before, a beacon of raw power that cut through the constant background noise of suffering that filled her telepathic senses. Maya pressed her back against a crumbling wall as a patrol of Dominion sentinels marched past, their crimson armor gleaming in the dim light. The neural dampening implant at the base of her skull throbbed, the price of hiding her telepathic signature from their scanners. One wrong move, one slip in concentration, and they would detect her presence. The signal pulsed again, stronger now. Maya closed her eyes, letting her mind reach out carefully. There, about half a kilometer east, in the industrial district. She waited until the patrol passed, then darted across the debris-strewn street, keeping to the shadows. The industrial district was a graveyard of massive machinery, skeletal factories reaching toward the contaminated sky like the ribcages of ancient beasts. The signal led her to what had once been a processing plant, its walls scarred by plasma burns and artillery fire. Fresh impact marks scored the ground around a crashed escape pod, its hull still glowing from atmospheric entry. Maya approached cautiously, her hand hovering near the energy blade at her hip. The pod's design was unlike anything she'd seen before, sleek, advanced, definitely not Dominion manufacture. As she drew closer, she felt the psychic signature grow stronger, more focused. Whoever was inside had power that rivaled that of the ancient Guardian Masters. The pod's hatch exploded outward suddenly, making her jump back. Through the smoke emerged a tall figure in battered combat armor, moving with the fluid grace of a trained warrior despite obvious injuries. The stranger raised an old-model pulse rifle, then lowered it slightly upon seeing her. "You're not Dominion," the man said, his voice rough but controlled. Blood trickled from a gash in his forehead. "Neither are you," Maya replied, studying him carefully with both normal and psychic senses. "That armor. Earth Special Forces. But that's impossible. The ESF was wiped out during the fall." The man chuckled darkly. "Not all of us." He stumbled slightly, catching himself against the pod. "Commander James Harrison, 7th Special Operations Division. Though I suppose rank doesn't mean much anymore." Maya's heart stopped. Everyone knew that name. Harrison was a legend, the hero of a dozen battles during the early days of the invasion. He was supposed to have died holding the line at New Singapore, buying time for the civilian evacuation fleet to escape. "Harrison died 20 years ago," she said carefully, her hand tightening on her weapon. "Technically, I was in cryo-sleep for most of that time." He grimaced, touching his side where blood was seeping through his armor. "Part of a classified operation called Project Lazarus. We had facilities hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to strike back. But something went wrong with my pod's navigation system. Instead of reaching the rendezvous point, I ended up here." A distant explosion rocked the ground, followed by the whine of Dominion dropships. Maya's telepathic senses screamed a warning. They were coming, drawn by the pod's crash signature. "We need to move," she said urgently. "There's a resistance safe house 2 kilometers from here, but we'll have to avoid the main streets. The Dominion has death squads everywhere, hunting for the last of my kind." Harrison studied her for a moment. "You're a Guardian. I thought they were all dead." "Almost all. I'm Maya Winters, possibly the last one left. And right now, I'm your only chance of surviving the next hour." She extended her hand. "Can you walk?" He nodded grimly, checking his rifle's charge. "Lead the way, Guardian." They moved through the ruins as quickly as Harrison's injuries would allow, Maya using her abilities to sense patrols before they got too close. She could feel the commander's mind, disciplined, focused, but hiding something massive. Whatever Project Lazarus was, it was more than just a survival protocol. "The resistance networks," Harrison said as they ducked into an abandoned maintenance tunnel. "Are they still active?" "Scattered but surviving. The Dominion controls most populated worlds through their neural control network, but there are free colonies in the outer systems. If we can get you to them. She trailed off as her senses detected movement ahead. A squad of Dominion troops was sweeping the tunnel network, led by something that made her psychic warnings scream, a neural hunter, one of the telepathically enhanced assassins bred specifically to track down Guardians. "We've got trouble," she whispered. "They know we're here. They'll have the tunnel exits covered." Harrison checked his ammunition with practiced efficiency. "Then we make our own exit." He pulled something from his belt, a device Maya didn't recognize. Old Earth tech, experimental sonic resonator. "Should punch right through these walls, but it'll make one hell of a noise." Maya nodded, drawing her energy blade. Its purple glow illuminated the tunnel as she activated it. "They'll be on us in seconds once you use that. Then we better make those seconds count." Harrison's eyes met hers in the dim light. "Ready?" Maya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history pressing down on them. A legendary commander and the last guardian, about to make their stand in the ruins of a fallen civilization. "Ready." The resonator activated with a high-pitched whine that quickly built to a devastating crescendo. The tunnel wall exploded outward, showering them with debris as alarms began to blare. Maya could sense the neural hunter's surprise turning to savage anticipation. They burst through the opening into chaos, and the real fight for survival began. The stolen Dominion shuttle shuddered as it broke through Kairos' upper atmosphere, its engines straining under the stress of their hasty escape. Maya's hands flew across the controls, compensating for the damage they'd taken during their flight from the city. In the co-pilot's seat, Harrison worked to bypass the vessel's automated identification protocols before they could alert nearby Dominion warships. 3 minutes until we clear the gravity well, Maya announced, her voice tight with concentration. Blood from a fresh cut above her eye threatened to blur her vision, but she couldn't spare a hand to wipe it away. The battle through the city had been brutal, leaving them both battered but alive. Harrison grunted in acknowledgement, his fingers dancing across the ship's computer interface. "These encryption codes should buy us some time, but we'll need to switch vessels at the first opportunity. The Dominion will have every patrol in the sector looking for this shuttle." Maya risked a glance at him. The legendary commander looked pale, the strain of their escape clearly taking its toll on his still recovering body. But his eyes remained sharp, focused on the task at hand with an intensity that spoke of decades of combat experience. "There's something you're not telling me," she said quietly. "About Project Lazarus. About why you're really here." For a long moment, only the hum of the engines filled the cockpit. Then Harrison reached into a compartment in his armor and withdrew a small data crystal, its surface etched with markings Maya had never seen before. 20 years ago, when the Dominion first attacked Earth, they didn't just defeat us, they broke us. Completely. But what most people don't know is that we broke them too, in a way that could have changed everything. He turned the crystal in his hands, its facets catching the dim light. "We discovered their weakness, their true nature. But the knowledge came too late to save Earth." The shuttle's sensors chimed a warning, a Dominion patrol vessel had just entered scanning range. Maya quickly adjusted their course, using a field of debris to mask their signature. "What kind of weakness?" "The kind that explains why they're so afraid of telepaths like you. Why they hunted the Guardians to near extinction." Harrison's voice grew harder. "The Crimson Dominion isn't just an empire, it's a hive mind. A vast psychic network binding trillions of minds together, controlled by something ancient and terrible that calls itself the Overseer." Maya felt her blood run cold. She had always sensed something wrong about the Dominion, a disturbing uniformity in the minds of their soldiers and citizens. But this Project Lazarus wasn't just about preserving key military personnel, Harrison continued. It was about protecting the one weapon that could break their control, a psychic resonance code, developed by studying captured Dominion technology. A code that could shatter the hive mind and free everyone under their control. That's what's in the crystal, Maya realized. But why wake up now? Why here? Because the resistance is finally ready to use it. Hidden fleets, sleeper cells, dormant AI systems, all waiting for the signal. But we need someone strong enough to transmit the code through their network. Someone like a guardian. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. If Harrison was telling the truth, they weren't just running for their lives, they were carrying the key to humanity's salvation. And the Dominion would stop at nothing to prevent that. A new alert blared through the cockpit. Maya's heart sank as she saw the massive signature appearing on their sensors. Dominion Dreadnought just dropped out of hyperspace. They're launching fighters. They're not taking any chances, Harrison muttered, already plotting new escape vectors. That's no ordinary warship, look at the energy readings. That's the Inquisitor's personal vessel. Maya had heard whispers about the Inquisitor, the Dominion Supreme Hunter, more machine than organic, created specifically to track down and eliminate threats to the hive mind. If they'd drawn his attention. We need to jump to hyperspace now, she said, pushing the shuttle's engines to their limit. Ready or not? The navigational computer isn't finished calculating the route to Nexus Prime, Harrison warned. A blind jump could. We don't have a choice. Maya's hands flew across the controls as the first wave of energy blasts from the pursuing fighters lit up space around them. Better lost than captured. She could feel the Inquisitor's presence now, a cold, mechanical intelligence probing the space around them. Its thoughts were alien, fractured, a twisted mixture of organic and artificial consciousness that made her telepathic senses recoil. Harrison nodded grimly and began the emergency jump sequence. I've seen good people die trying to escape the Inquisitor. But I've also seen what happens to those he captures. He looked at Maya, his expression grave. Whatever happens, that crystal cannot fall into their hands. The shuttle systems screamed in protest as Maya executed a series of desperate evasive maneuvers. A blast from one of the fighters clipped their port engine, sending them spinning. She fought for control as Harrison finished the jump calculations. 5 seconds to jump, he announced. If we survive this. When we survive this, Maya corrected him, refusing to accept any other outcome. The weight of their mission, of all they carried, settled onto her shoulders like a physical burden. But she had spent her entire life preparing for a moment like this, even if she hadn't known it. Space distorted around them as the hyperspace drive engaged. The last thing Maya saw before reality twisted was the looming shape of the Inquisitor's dreadnought, its weapon systems charging for a killing blow that would never land. They had escaped, for now. But as the tunnel of hyperspace enveloped them, Maya knew this was just the beginning. The true battle lay ahead, and the fate of countless enslaved minds would depend on what they did next. The shuttle's damaged systems gradually stabilized as they traveled through hyperspace, giving them their first moment to truly process everything that had happened. Maya engaged the autopilot and finally wiped the blood from her face, her hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline crash. We'll need help, she said finally, breaking the tense silence. Even if we reach the resistance, transmitting that code won't be easy. The Dominion's psychic defenses. I know. Harrison carefully secured the crystal in a shielded compartment. That's why we're not going straight to Nexus Prime. There's someone we need to find first, another survivor of Project Lazarus who might be the key to making this work. Maya looked at him sharply. Another survivor? Who? Someone who knows more about the Dominion's true nature than anyone else alive. Someone who's been fighting them from the shadows all these years. A ghost of a smile crossed Harrison's face. An old friend who's very good at staying hidden. The shuttle continued its blind journey through hyperspace, carrying its vital cargo in the hopes of a galaxy. Behind them, the Inquisitor's forces would already be mobilizing, and ahead lay challenges they could barely imagine. But for the first time in 20 years, there was a real chance to strike back at the heart of the Crimson Dominion. The war for freedom was about to enter its final phase. The resistance base on Nexus Prime wasn't what Maya had expected. Instead of a hidden fortress or underground bunker, she found herself standing in the midst of a bustling trading port, its streets filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Harrison had explained that this was the perfect cover, hiding their operations in plain sight, masked by the constant flow of legitimate commerce. But Maya's telepathic senses told her something was wrong. As they made their way through the crowded marketplace, she detected fragments of thoughts that didn't belong, minds that were too ordered, too synchronized. The Dominion's influence had already reached this place. "We're being watched," she whispered to Harrison as they passed a stall selling salvaged ship parts. "There are Dominion agents in the crowd. Their thoughts, they're connected to something larger." Harrison kept walking, his face carefully neutral. "How many?" "At least 5 that I can detect. Maybe more." Maya resisted the urge to look around. "They're trying to hide their presence, but their minds have that same hive-like pattern you described." "Then our intelligence was right," Harrison muttered. "The base is compromised. We need to warn the resistance leadership before." An explosion rocked the marketplace, sending civilians scrambling for cover. Through the smoke and chaos, Maya caught glimpses of armored figures moving with military precision. Not the usual Dominion troops, these were something else, their movements too quick, too coordinated. Neural Enhanced Strike Team, Harrison identified them, pulling Maya into a narrow alley. Elite units directly linked to the hive mind. "They're not here for us, this is a planned operation." Maya reached out with her abilities, trying to track the attackers' movements. Their enhanced minds were difficult to read, filled with artificial patterns that made her head ache. But through the chaos, she detected something else, genuine resistance fighters, moving to protect evacuation routes. The resistance knows, she realized. They're already responding. This way. They ran through back alleys and service corridors, avoiding the main fighting. Harrison's combat experience and Maya's telepathic guidance allowed them to stay one step ahead of the Neural Strike team. Finally, they reached a seemingly abandoned warehouse near the port's edge. A hidden elevator took them deep underground, where they found the real resistance base, a sprawling complex carved into Nexus Prime's bedrock. But even here, signs of battle were evident. Medical teams rushed to treat wounded fighters, while security teams fortified defensive positions. Commander Harrison. A tall woman with cybernetic augmentations covering half her face strode toward them. "Intel said you were dead." "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Colonel Chen." Harrison clasped her arm in greeting. "Though I wish I was returning under better circumstances." "We've been compromised for weeks," Chen explained grimly. "Dominion infiltrators managed to slip through our screening protocols. We were preparing to evacuate when they launched their attack." She glanced at Maya. "A guardian? I thought they were extinct." "Nearly," Maya answered. "And now I know why. The Dominion fears us because we can expose what they really are, a vast psychic network controlling trillions of minds." Chen's organic eye widened. "So the rumors were true. That's why they hunted the Guardians so ruthlessly. You could sense their true nature." "More than that," Harrison interjected. "We have a way to break their control. Project Lazarus wasn't just about preservation, it was about developing a weapon against their hive mind. But we need your help to use it." Before Chen could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. Maya's telepathic senses screamed a warning seconds before the first explosions hit. The Neural Strike team had found them. "They're inside the perimeter." Chen shouted, drawing her weapon. "All units, fall back to defensive positions." The next few minutes were chaos. Maya and Harrison fought alongside the resistance fighters, their different combat styles complementing each other perfectly. His precise shots and her telepathic abilities created a deadly combination, helping hold back the initial wave of attackers. But Maya could sense something worse approaching, a cold, mechanical presence that made her skin crawl. The same presence she had felt during their space battle. "The Inquisitor," she gasped. "He's here." Harrison's face hardened. "How?" "We lost them in hyperspace." "Because you have a traitor in your midst," a new voice announced. Maya turned to see a resistance fighter approaching, but his movements were wrong, mechanical. His eyes glowed with an unnatural red light. The hive mind is everywhere. We are legion. More resistance fighters appeared, all moving with the same artificial precision. Their minds were open now, broadcasting their connection to the hive mind. They had been sleeper agents, waiting for this moment. Fall back. Chen ordered, but it was too late. The possessed fighters opened fire, forcing everyone to take cover. Maya threw up a telepathic shield, barely deflecting a barrage of energy bolts. The crystal, Harrison said urgently, pressing the data storage device into Maya's hands. Get it to the secondary base. Find Dr. Marcus, he'll know what to do. I'm not leaving you here, Maya protested. This isn't a debate, Guardian. Harrison checked his weapon. That crystal is everything. The resistance will die without it. Chen and I will hold them off. Maya wanted to argue, but she could sense the truth in his words. And something else, a plan forming in his mind, desperate but necessary. There's a maintenance shaft behind the weapon storage, Chen said, firing at the advancing enemies. It leads to the surface. Go. Maya clutched the crystal, memorizing the coordinates. Harrison was practically shouting in his thoughts. Then she ran, her heart breaking at leaving them behind. Behind her, she heard Harrison and Chen laying down covering fire, buying her precious seconds to escape. As she climbed through the maintenance shaft, explosions rocked the complex. Her telepathic senses caught fragments of the battle, Harrison and Chen fighting back to back, the cold presence of the Inquisitor drawing closer, minds being subsumed into the hive mind one by one. She emerged on the surface as night was falling, her lungs burning from the climb. The trading port was in chaos, battles raging across multiple sectors. But Maya had a mission now, coordinates to follow, and a crystal that could change everything. She looked back at the hidden entrance one last time, sending a silent prayer for Harrison and Chen's survival. Then she disappeared into the shadows, carrying the hopes of the resistance with her. The real war was just beginning, and she would need every bit of her Guardian training for what lay ahead. The Dominion thought they had won when they nearly wiped out the Guardians. But they had forgotten an ancient truth: sometimes, one survivor is all it takes to change everything. Maya clutched the crystal tighter and began to run. Three days after the fall of the Nexus Prime base, Maya stood before a gathering of resistance leaders in a hidden facility deep within the radioactive wastes of Tartarus. The planet's hostile environment provided natural protection against the Dominion's sensors, making it the perfect location for what could be humanity's last stand. Dr. Marcus Kane, the surviving architect of Project Lazarus, studied the crystal she had brought with intense focus. He was older than Maya had expected, his face bearing the scars of countless surgical procedures, the price of his work on understanding Dominion technology. Harrison was right, Kane announced finally, looking up from his instruments. This is exactly what we need. The resonance code is intact, and with Miss Winter's telepathic abilities, we might actually have a chance to break the hive mind's control. Might? One of the resistance leaders demanded. We just lost our main base and hundreds of good people. We need more than might. Maya stepped forward. I can do it. But there's something you all need to understand first. She took a deep breath, centering herself. When I was escaping Nexus Prime, I sensed something in the hive mind, fragments of memories that weren't meant to be shared. I saw the truth about the Dominion, about the Overseer. The room fell silent as Maya projected the memories she had gathered, sharing them telepathically with the assembled leaders. The Overseer isn't just controlling the hive mind, it's using it to feed. Every connected mind adds to its power, fuels its immortality. That's why Earth was just the beginning. It will never stop expanding, never stop consuming minds, unless we end it now. Kane nodded grimly. Which is why timing is critical. Our agents have discovered that the Overseer is preparing for a massive expansion of the neural network. They're building amplifiers on every conquered world, ready to extend their control to the outer systems. Once those amplifiers activate, then we hit them first, a new voice declared. Maya turned to see Harrison entering the chamber, supported by Colonel Chen. Both were battered but alive, having barely escaped Nexus Prime. Strike at their primary control node before they can expand the network. Maya rushed to help Harrison to a seat, noting the fresh scars and cybernetic repairs covering his body. The Inquisitor. Still alive, Harrison grimaced. But we hurt him. Bought enough time for the evacuation. He looked at the assembled leaders. More importantly, we learned something vital. The Overseer has to maintain direct connection with the primary node to control the hive mind. That's our window. Colonel Chen activated a holographic display, showing a massive space station orbiting a dying star. The Node Prime facility. The heart of their entire network. Heavily defended, of course, but we've identified a weakness. Their own security systems work against them. They can't shut down the neural network without losing control of their forces. If we can get Maya inside, I can broadcast the resonance code through their own network, Maya finished. Turn their greatest weapon against them. It's suicide, one of the leaders protested. The station's defenses are formidable, Harrison cut in. But we have surprise on our side. They don't know we have the code, don't know we understand how their network really works. And thanks to the chaos at Nexus Prime, they don't realize how much of our fleet survived. Dr. Kane stepped forward, his augmented eyes glowing faintly. There's something else. Something I've never told anyone, not even Harrison. He gestured to his scarred face. My modifications weren't just for research. I've been slowly building a backdoor into their systems, using their own technology against them. I can get us past their outer defenses, but only for a few minutes. Maya studied the holographic station, her mind already formulating a plan. How long would I need to broadcast the code? 3 minutes minimum, Kane replied. But you need to understand, connecting directly to the hive mind is incredibly dangerous. The neural load alone could kill you. And if the Overseer detects your presence, it won't matter if those amplifiers activate, Maya said firmly. We're out of options and out of time. Harrison stood, still unsteady but determined. Then we give you those 3 minutes, whatever it takes. He turned to the resistance leaders. Everything we've built, every ship we've hidden, every fighter we've saved, it all comes down to this. One chance to break the chains. The room erupted in tactical discussions as plans were quickly formed. The Resistance's hidden fleet would launch a massive assault on Node Prime, drawing away the Dominion's defenders. A small strike team led by Harrison and Chen would escort Maya to the central control room. Dr. Kane would coordinate from a stealth ship, working to maintain their window of opportunity. As the others planned the attack, Maya stood alone before the station's hologram. The task ahead seemed impossible, connecting to a network of billions of enslaved minds, fighting the will of an ancient entity that had conquered countless civilizations. Everything she had trained for, everything she had survived for, led to this moment. She felt Harrison's presence before he spoke. Having second thoughts. No, Maya replied honestly. But I am afraid. Not of dying, but of failing. All those minds, all those people counting on us. Fear keeps us human, Harrison said quietly. The Overseer's drones don't feel fear, don't question orders. That's why they'll never understand what we're fighting for. He placed a hand on her shoulder. The old Guardian Masters, would they have approved of this mission? Maya smiled slightly. They would have called it reckless, dangerous, and absolutely necessary. She turned to face him. Thank you, Harrison. For believing in me. The Dominion thought they won when they nearly wiped out the Guardians, Harrison replied. They didn't realize they were just making sure the ones who survived were the strongest. He checked his chronometer. 2 hours until we launch. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we either free humanity or join it in chains. Maya nodded, her hand unconsciously touching the crystal that contained humanity's last hope. In her mind, she could already feel the vast presence of the hive mind, waiting like a storm on the horizon. Tomorrow, she would dive into that storm, carrying the light of freedom. The time for hiding was over. Tomorrow, the last guardian would remind the Dominion why they had feared her kind in the first place. The battle for Node Prime erupted like a supernova. The Resistance fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships emerging from years of hiding to launch one final, desperate assault. The station's defense grid came alive instantly, filling space with deadly energy beams and swarms of autonomous fighters. Maya watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of their stealth infiltrator, her heart pounding as Harrison guided the ship through the growing battlefield. Behind them, Colonel Chen coordinated with the Resistance fleet, directing their forces to key tactical positions. Dr. Kane worked feverishly at his console, his augmented systems interfacing directly with the ship's computers. First wave has engaged the outer defenses, Chen reported. Dominion capital ships are moving to respond, just as we predicted. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected, Kane added, his artificial eyes glowing with data streams. They're calling in reinforcements. Our window is closing. Harrison's hands danced across the controls, weaving their ship through the debris of destroyed vessels. How long until you can get us that opening, Doctor? The backdoor program is already working. 3 minutes until, Kane suddenly stiffened, his augmentation sparking. No. No, this isn't possible. They're adapting too quickly. The Overseer, it knows. Maya felt it too, a vast, malevolent consciousness turning its attention toward them. The hive mind rippled with new energy as the Overseer took direct control of its forces. Dominion ships began moving with impossible precision, their tactics shifting to patterns no organic mind could conceive. Incoming! Harrison shouted as energy beams lanced through space around them. Their stealth systems were failing, compromised by the Overseer's enhanced control. Then a familiar cold presence touched Maya's mind. The Inquisitor had arrived. His vessel emerged from hyperspace directly ahead of them, its hybrid organic mechanical form bristling with weapons. But it wasn't alone. Dozens of neural hunter ships accompanied it, each piloted by telepathically enhanced assassins specifically designed to counter Guardian abilities. We need a new plan, Chen said grimly, watching their tactical display fill with hostile signals. We're not getting anywhere near that station now. Maya closed her eyes, reaching out with her telepathic senses. Through the chaos of battle, she could feel the Node Prime facility, a massive nexus of enslaved minds all connected to the central hub where the Overseer dwelled. But there was something else, something the others couldn't see. The Overseer is afraid, she realized, opening her eyes. It's committing everything to stopping us because it knows we can hurt it. And it's making a mistake. Harrison glanced back at her. What kind of mistake? By taking direct control of its forces, it's had to strengthen its connection to the neural network. The barriers between individual minds are weaker now. Maya stood, her decision made. I don't need to be inside the station to broadcast the code. I can do it from here. The neural load would be even worse at this distance, Kane warned. It could burn out your mind completely. We don't have a choice, Maya replied. And I won't be alone. She looked at Kane. Your augmentations, they can interface with their technology. If you link with me, help stabilize the connection. Kane's organic eye widened. It could work. But the risk is better than certain failure, Harrison finished. He exchanged looks with Chen, who nodded grimly. What do you need us to do? Maya took out the crystal containing the resonance code. Get me as close as you can. Keep us alive for 3 minutes. And she managed a small smile. If I don't survive this, make sure it was worth it. The next few moments were a blur of preparation. Kane connected Maya to his systems using neural interfaces, their minds joining in a carefully controlled link. Harrison and Chen took their positions, ready to defend their ship with everything they had. Multiple hostile vessels on intercept course, Chen reported. The Inquisitor is leading them personally. Let him come, Harrison said, his voice hard with determination. Maya, whenever you're ready. Maya sat in the ship's neural interface chair, the crystal's data uploading into her mind. Through her link with Kane, she could feel the vast architecture of the Dominion's network spreading out before her like an infinite web of light and shadow. Broadcasting now, she whispered, and dove into the abyss. The sensation was beyond anything she had experienced. Billions of minds pressed against her consciousness, soldiers, civilians, slaves, all bound together by the Overseer's will. The pain was extraordinary, but Maya pushed through it, supported by Kane's stabilizing presence. She could feel the Overseer's rage as it detected her intrusion. It struck at her mentally, trying to overwhelm her with its ancient power. But Maya was ready. She took the resonance code and transformed it, turning it into a song of freedom that rippled through the neural network. Outside, in the physical world, the battle reached its peak. Harrison and Chen fought with incredible skill, their small ship dancing through waves of enemies. The Resistance fleet pressed its attack, buying them precious seconds with their lives. The Inquisitor's ship drew closer, its weapons charging for a killing blow. But something was wrong. Throughout the battlefield, Dominion vessels began to falter as their crews awakened from the hive mind's control. It's working. Kane gasped, his system straining to support Maya's broadcast. The network is destabilizing. Maya barely heard him. She was everywhere now, touching every mind connected to the network. She felt the Overseer's growing panic as its control began to slip. It struck at her again and again, but each attack only helped spread the resonance code further. 1 minute left, Kane managed. Maya, your neural patterns are becoming erratic. You need to. No, Maya cut him off, pushing herself deeper into the network. I can feel them all. They're awakening. They just need a little more. The Overseer made its final, desperate move. It tried to sever its connection to the network, to abandon its thralls and escape. But Maya was ready. She caught the ancient consciousness and held it, forcing it to experience something it had never known, the combined will of billions of minds it had enslaved, all turning against it at once. The Overseer's death scream echoed through the neural network like a psychic supernova. Throughout the battlefield, Dominion ships stopped firing as their crews were freed. The neural hunters fell silent, their enhanced pilots no longer bound to their master's will. The Inquisitor's ship, caught in the middle of its final attack run, suddenly went dark. Through the last remnants of the neural link, Maya felt the hybrid being's centuries of torment end as its organic components were finally allowed to die. Maya. Harrison's voice seemed to come from very far away. Maya, can you hear me? She opened her eyes slowly, every nerve in her body screaming with exhaustion. Kane was slumped in his chair, his augmentation smoking but stable. Chen was helping him disconnect from the interface. Did we? Maya's voice was barely a whisper. We did it, Harrison confirmed, his own voice thick with emotion. The Dominion fleet is standing down. The Resistance is reporting the same thing across every sector. The hive mind is gone. Maya tried to stand but her legs wouldn't support her. Harrison caught her before she could fall, holding her steady as Chen read out reports from across the battlefield. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, all free for the first time in decades. There will be chaos, Maya said quietly, watching the massive Node Prime station through the viewport. All those people, suddenly free after years of control. They'll need help. Then we help them, Harrison replied simply. We rebuild. We heal. We do whatever it takes. He looked at her with deep respect. The Guardians were protectors of peace, weren't they? Looks like you'll have your work cut out for you. Maya smiled, feeling the first rays of hope she had known in years. The neural network was silent now, but she could sense something else, a growing chorus of free minds, reaching out to each other not in bondage, but in choice. We all will, she said, looking at her companions, the legendary commander, the determined colonel, the brilliant doctor. Each had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. The war is over. Now comes the hard part. As their ship turned away from the battlefield, Maya watched the first rescue vessels approaching the freed Dominion ships. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if celebrating with them. A new dawn was rising for humanity and all the other races that had suffered under the Overseer's rule. The last Guardian had done what she was born to do, protected the innocent and restored balance to the galaxy. But she was no longer the last. In time, she would find others with the gift, teach them the ways of her people. The Guardians would rise again, not as warriors, but as healers for a wounded galaxy. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in 20 years, it was free. And that was worth everything.